Okay, very good evening to all of you. Let me take this moment to welcome all of you to this roundtable on India's aspirations to build world-class universities, a 2020 reform agenda. Before we formally go into the proceedings of this roundtable, I would like us to do a quick round of introductions, and then we will take it from there. We are going to keep it as, let's say, sharp as we can and have a very meaningful engagement. Let me begin by extending a warm welcome to our chief guest and chair of this evening's proceedings, Professor Pritam Singh, who, as you know, doesn't need any introduction to this forum. Former director, MDI, and IIM Lucknow, a member of the committee of the MHRD to select the Institute of Eminence, but more importantly, a very distinguished educationist, somebody who has seen the last half a century of evolution of Indian higher education sector, closely connected with industry and seen the impact in both those sectors. So I'm really grateful to him for accepting our invitation. I also want to extend a warm welcome to all the educationists around the table, including some of our faculty members. So I will have Professor Pritam Singh introduce him at the end. Let me begin with my colleague here, Sridhar. Quick round of introductions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sridhar Kaviru. Firstly, self-congratulations is no praise, but on behalf of myself and everyone around the table and in the hall, I would like to congratulate the OP Jindal Global University and also the Vice Chancellor for his visionary leadership in taking the institution to where it is today in terms of the rankings and all. And that said, I would like to introduce myself. I'm a professor of law at the Jindal Global Law School, and I'm also the founding director of the Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies and also the executive director of a research center called the Center for South Asian Legal Studies. And in addition to this, I'm also the chief proctor of the university. I'm trained in the areas of law with a particular focus on public international law, and my teaching and research is in the areas of international law and international organizations. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Dr. Vinod Bhatt. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Manipal Academy of Higher Education. It's an institution of eminence, and this makes me interact with Professor Pritam Singh quite often. I'm from the Faculty of Medicine. I've been with Manipal for the last 32 years. And just as we have seen evolution in the field of education, we have seen the transformation of Manipal from what it was into a truly an international educational town. Thank you.
I am Vivekanandan. I'm currently the dean at the law school in Bennett University. I had all along my teaching career with public schools. That is National Law School of India, Bangalore, and also at Nalsar University, where I'm still holding my lien and being part of Bennett. And of course, my experiment to a private school to an extent is inspired by Dr. Rajkumar, right? And I do remember 10 years back, I think nobody was backing Rajkumar when he had his big plans about this private university in terms of law school. And then I've been in touch with him, and then that could be one other thing to come to a private thing and experiment. And I would say it's been a satisfying experience for the last 2 years with this particular group, which has allowed full freedom to set up a law school. So I'm sure that today's topic is going to somewhere touch upon this, what I call the competing inequalities, I say, about public and private. One seems to be very glorified with less funds. The other seems to be having a lot of funds, but trying to build up the other part of the intellectual capital. So it's been a kind of a transformative period, I would say, and also that many of the major groups which had the strengths in different industries has come in. So that's one. I thought probably, depending on the discussion, I thought I'll contribute. So I'm quite happy to be here. So I was asking Professor, I saw the list of Vice Chancellors here. So I was asking Professor Vijay Kumar, he got confused with my initials, which is also VC, right? so anyway, I'm here. Thank you. Right.
So, my name is Anand Prakash Mishra. I'm assistant professor, assistant dean in Jindal Global Law School, and also I'm director of law admissions. My background is of University of Delhi, Faculty of Law. I studied my LLB and LLM at the Campus Law Center, and I also have the privilege of being a college junior of Professor Rajkumar. Raj sir is also originally an LLB from Campus Law Center before he went to Oxford and Harvard Law Schools. So for last 8 years, I have been with Jindal Global Law School and a part of this journey of now becoming indeed one of the most premier and the largest law school in South Asia. So I'm very happy being here, and thank you all parents and our well-wishers for being here. Thank you.
Anamika, I'll just request ma'am to introduce.
I'm Pankaj Mittal, now Secretary General AIU. And before this, I was Vice Chancellor of a Women University in Haryana and Additional Secretary with the University Grants Commission.
For those of you who may not be familiar with it, she heads Secretary General of the Association of Indian Universities, which is a very premier organization that brings together all Indian universities into one umbrella. And we're very delighted that she has joined us in this. Thank you.
My name is Anamika Srivastava. I am Assistant Professor at OP Jindal Global University. I am one of the economists at the law school. And I also do research in higher education, also part of International Institute for Higher Education Research and Capacity Building. My area of research is higher education policy, markets in higher education, and marketing in higher education.
Hello everybody, my name is Moushmi Mukherjee. I'm an Associate Professor and Deputy Director of the International Institute of Higher Education at OP Jindal Global University. My research is in the area of education policy and leadership, and I particularly look at education policy and leadership issues from a comparative and international perspective. My current research is particularly focused on internationalization of higher education, and particularly in India. Thank you.
Hello everybody, thanks to Raj for getting us all around this table. I'm Rupamanjari Ghosh. I'm a physicist by profession, but currently the Vice Chancellor of Shiv Nada University in Greater Noida. We are a fully multidisciplinary university, sciences, engineering, social sciences, and humanities, plus our business school is called Management and Entrepreneurship. So started only in 2011, so it's slightly younger than Raj's initiative. So they're there, and direct interaction with Professor Pritam Singh was when we appeared for the IOE, and now the press release says we are number 7th in that list, so I'll be following Professor Bhatt as soon as the formal notification comes. That apart, I think whether we deserve to be an institution of eminence, the way it has been dreamt, is something that I'm looking forward to debate today. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Professor Murthy. I'm the Professor and Registrar of OP Jindal Global University. I'm a civil servant turned academic. I had joined the Indian Statistical Service in '85, and before branching off to Indian Information Service in '87. I worked in the Government of India for over 24 years, including in the Prime Minister's Office, President Secretariat, and Cabinet Secretariat. Half of my tenure was in the National Human Rights Commission. When the JGU was being established, I joined as a founding faculty member and started the Center for Human Rights Studies, which I continue to direct now. My areas of interest include international human rights law, humanitarian law, and refugee law.
So can you hear me? Hello, my name is Sean Bala, and I am an associate professor in the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. And I also wear the other hat of being the director of admissions and outreach for the university. I handle the admissions and outreach for the 7 other schools. I come from the United States, and I've been with the university for 5 years. I was one of the founding faculty for the School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. So my research focuses on religious studies, primarily comparative religions. I did my undergraduate from Harvard University and my graduate work from the University of Chicago. It's been a really interesting journey being here for the past 5 years to see the growth of this institution. I came in part because I thought who in their right minds would be starting a liberal arts school in India. when I was living in the United States, and it's been a really interesting journey. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation about the way in which we actually can bring true internationalization, perhaps in the spirit of somebody like Rabindranath Tagore, who talked about that we have to also bring the best of India and the best of the West together into conversation. So I hope that we talk about that today.
Thank you, Sean. My name is Nandita Kaushal. I'm a research associate at International Institute for Higher Education Research and Capacity Building. Formerly, I am trained in economics. I have a post-graduation in economics, but at IHT, I work in the area of higher education policy, and currently my research is at the intersection of higher education policy and technology. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. I am Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi. I have been working as director of BIMTech, which is Birla Institute of Management Technology, Greater Noida. Before joining BIMTech, I worked for 4 years with the AICTE regulator for 4 years as director. I have taught for 20 years at Agra University, Agra. And beside this, I have been one of the founder member of Education Promotion Society for India, and currently I am alternate president of this national body, which represents large number of colleges and universities, including OP Jindal Global University. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Professor J.K. Garg, representing Terry School of Advanced Studies, Vasant Kunj. Actually, I find myself at odds with all of you, rather, I would say. Earlier, I was working with ISRO for about 32 years, then thought of switching over to academics. I joined IP University, and recently, in January, I shifted to Terry School of Advanced Studies. And Professor Leena Srivastava could not come, so that's why I'm representing the university. You know, I find that space technology has a great role to play. All of you know it. And as far as education is concerned, we don't have good teachers also. Let me be honest with you. People have some training and then they shift to teaching and all that without realizing the full potential. And as far as Terry School of Advanced Studies is concerned, it is the only deemed university in the country which deals solely with sustainable development. A need which exists, and in this context, we have all sort of people, starting from social scientists, engineers, botanists, zoologists, remote sensing and space scientists. Thank you very much.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. My name is Varghese. I'm the Vice Chancellor of the National Institute of Education Planning and Administration, New Delhi. I used to be the Director of Center for Policy Research in Higher Education. And 16 years, I used to be with the UNESCO, International Institute of Education Planning, heading their division dealing with the governance and management. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashish Bhardwaj. I'm professor and dean of the youngest school of the university, Jindal School of Banking and Finance. I also serve as executive director of the Office of Rankings, Benchmarking and Institutional Transformation, Orbit, along with my colleague Arya Majumdar. The other members of the Orbit team are also sitting here, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
Before you do, let me recognize Mahesh. Please, Mahesh.
Hi, my name is Maheshwar Peri. I founded Career 360. We're largely into assessing and also at times validating some of the information that quite a few of you people give in, rather the universities give in, and check if things are towards the student side or something like that. So essentially we are a magazine, a journalistic magazine, which is trying to help students decide what's the right career or course option for themselves.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ashwin Fernandes, Regional Director for QS Rankings. A lot of people in this room probably have heard of the QS Rankings, and the audience we have here has probably seen our website, topuniversities.com. QS produces the world ranking for the last 16 years. A lot of people are not aware we came out of a university So our founder started off QS at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania in 1989. And our motive at QS is to keep the students at the heart of what we do and to provide students with information that can make life-changing decisions. So all our rankings we have keep the students at the heart of it, and we'd love to have some interaction on the ranking front and how the rankings can drive the national agenda for the country, and how I'm here to listen from all of you all and contribute from a little bit what from QS beliefs in nation building as well. So it's a privilege for me to be here, and thanks to our lovely host, OP Jindal Global University, who celebrate one of the major achievements for them, being the youngest university to be featured in the QS World University Rankings 2020 edition, which was released a few weeks ago. And yesterday, we released the QS top 150 universities under the age of 50 years. And in that, we have had just 3 universities from India which featured. 2 of them were our government or public institution, and OP Jindal made a debut in this ranking for being the youngest university in this ranking, so in a span of 9 years. So definitely being a young university, they could do it. I think India has much more potential, and I think we would like to hear from you, and we would like to share, I'd like to share with you what other institutions are doing on this front. So thank you so much for having me here in the midst.
All right, thank you so much, Ashwin. We have another 1 hour and 40 minutes, and we're going to keep this debate as sharp as we can. So I'm going to request our chief guest and chair to kick off the debate and the discussion, and maybe for say 5 to 7 minutes, he will say some things about, as in the form of introductory remarks and setting the agenda, and then we have, let's say, 15 discussants who I will invite, and each one of you would make, let's say, initial remarks of 3 to 4 minutes. And that will take us to approximately, will leave us with another 45 minutes at the end of it, when we can have a more freewheeling conversation in the form of a discussion and a brainstorming session. We are recording the proceedings of this discussion, and we do intend to collate the proceedings and to provide meaningful information and dialogue and discussion for other government and regulatory bodies towards seeking reforms in relation to the idea and the aspiration of building world-class universities. I am reserving my comments. I'm going to request our Honorable Chair and Chief Guest to give his introductory remarks. Please, sir.
Well, few words about myself. I think that my academic career has been the most checkered academic career. Right from BHU, then senior Fulbrighter to America, doing PhD, and joining Westinghouse for about 7 years, coming back to India and joining XLRI Jamshedpur, and then moving from XLRI Jamshedpur to Administrative Staff College of India, having the distinction of training ministers. So I did the 4 programs for the ministers in this country. And then moving from Administrative Staff College of India to IIM Bangalore, and from IIM Bangalore to MDI, and from MDI to IIM Lucknow, again coming back to MDI, and from MDI to IMI. So that's why I say that it's the most checkered career, I think that, you know that. And my wife says that sometime you must stop now this big checkered career. I think I am reminded of a great wisdom of Buddha, Chanakya, Machiavelli, and Pluto. They all made a statement. It's a context that provides meaning. Words, actions, strategy, they don't have any meaning unless they are contextualized. So let me try to contextualize slightly, you know that, so that we can focus on those issues. The biggest issue which the Prime Minister, when we met the Prime Minister 3 times, and I think that we were very much enamored the amount of time which he gave to us every meeting for about 1 hour and 30 minutes, you know that. And Bhatt Sahib must have realized how much homework we did in asking questions and probing and all that. First thing which he said that, look, we have to bring more academic partner from the private sector. Because you find that right now we are spending about 3.7% and higher education only 0.89%, whether we would be having money to spend more on the higher education. He made that point very clear. So that's why the whole idea is that how to bring credible private sector. He also used the word credible private sector, and that's where many that Rukmanjari also came actually, and I think that Vedanta group came and Airtel came. So all private players, they came, and we selected 3 from the private sector. In the first instance, we had Manipal, and we had VIT, and then we had BITS Pilani and VIT also Belur. And I think that later on we increased the list. And in that list, some other players are there. But those lists are not publicly announced, and I would also not like to announce that list, because that will go for the cabinet approval. And we were waiting for the election. So we have, in fact, selected around 24. 12 from the private and 12 from the public and all that. Not 12, I think, if I remember, 8 from the private and 16 from the public and all that. And our whole idea is that when we met the Prime Minister, he said that, well, can we have 50-50? So first of all, he talked about the 20 institutions, then he expanded his dream, and he said, now let's have about 100. The problem which we saw, and the major problem where I think that he is sitting, Fernandes is sitting here, the research work. I mean, this is the one area when we start comparing with Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Princeton, and all the great schools, I think that our performance has been a dismal performance. I'm using the word dismal performance. Yagi jaiye. So the first question is that how to improve the component of research. And that's why if I try to see any robust academic institutions, creation of knowledge is the first one. Because without writing Vedas, one can't become a Brahmin. And Brahmin I'm using not as a caste, but I am using Brahmin as a profession. So the professors must write Vedas. It means that they must do the research work. So that's where the creation of knowledge comes. The second one comes about the whole dissemination of knowledge. How we are disseminating this teaching pedagogy and those kind of things. And that's where you find that Confucius made a very powerful statement. When I read, I forget. When I see, I remember. But when I do, I understand. How to bring doing and reading and understanding and appreciating is important. Confucius made this statement. And that's why when we talk about the pragmatic wisdom, and Vivekananda also made a very powerful statement that thought without action doesn't have any value. Thought without action doesn't have any value. And action without thought is a futile exercise. How to integrate thought and action is one major challenge, which I would like to say. Coming back, another point, I have been going to Shanghai, and Harvans knows about it. 7 times I went to Fudan University. And I could see the whole slogan of China has been imitate, improve, and excel. Imitate, improve, and excel. And that's why 65% export earning, 65% earning of GDP is export earning in China. if I compare our export earning, it's a dismal compared to miserable. Why? Because you find that there is no value addition. So when I was the member of the Defense Acquisition and Procurement Committee and the chairman, I recommended not made in India for India, make in India for the globe. Because we should have globe in our mind, because we are now in the global setup, that. That's important point. So how to improve research work? Because without research work, innovations, value addition can't take place. So I would be requesting members to spend some time what research work can be done, because if you don't mind, if I say many things, that the moment Indian professors become professors, and when they contribute their wisdom, they said, aha, I have become professor. Where is the question of reading and writing more? And that's why Charles Handy, the great thinker of management, he made the statement, universities are the relics of the past. We talk about the change, but we don't want to change. I'm not talking about Jindal, I'm not talking about Manipal, I'm not talking about Bispilani, I'm not talking about bits, that, but most of the universities, because I have been lucky to be the board member of at least about half a dozen universities and about 3 IITs. And also, I think that president nominee in selections and those kind of things. How to bring research work, what can be done about that? And for that, I would like to make one point. When I see academic institutions, I feel very peeved. Good BTech would not like to go for MTech. Good MTech would not like to go for research work, for PhD. And good PhD may not necessarily join teaching profession if he has got the option to join the academic corporate world. That's why no doubt this NEP, they have recommended about NIRF. And for the first time they have said this NIRF is not only for the public institutions, it's also for the private. For the first time. And that's a very great recommendation. And I said that when I met the Prime Minister, I said that why not Prime Minister's fellowship? He said, no, we have got about 50,000. I said, 50,000 is nothing. So I said, why not pay about a lakh per month and make it about 12 lakhs? And then you can compare yourself, and then you can persuade them to join academic institution. Now he asked a question that from where you are going to get 50,000, and I said 5,000 scholars. So he said, from where we are going to get that much money? So I said, in India, if you try to see CSR money, do you know that India spends about 50,000 crores of CSR, and these are only 500. The large institutions, they spend that much money. So I suggested, why not they should be requested to deposit 10% of that or even 5% of that in that fund. And to fund about 5,000 scholars at the rate of 12 lakhs, I think we would be spending around 600, and in 3 years we would be spending about 1,800 crores. That's nothing. That can come that. I think that it's being seriously examined. So this is the one point, friends, I would like to say, and Tyagiji is also sitting here, and I think that we should apply our mind, how we can create something like that, some accountability for teachers, professors. And accountability can be total workload. It can be 7 course workload, 8 course workload, whatever you decide. And then you should say that this is the course workload, how much, 33% at least we can say research, at 25% we can say research, and rest can be teaching as well as administration. Somewhere, and we should try to, because whatever we monitor we get, whatever we don't monitor we never get. So that's why when he was talking something about monitoring, and I can see that all of a sudden he will pull your rug. And because I never told me that you have to start, that. He said, I will be conducting meeting and you have to give the your comments, in the end. So I think that they should be prepared because people become, Tyagi Sahib is sitting here, and I think that the moment people become professor, they become immortal. Immortal man will never take medicine. When he knows that he will die one day, then he will start taking medicine. So professor, the moment they become professor, in the public institutions I am talking about, because I have managed three public institutions, Staff College, Bangalore, as well as Lucknow. I am a professor, and I always give the example. I think that Tyagi Sahib, in the University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, a friend of mine, he became the Vice Chancellor. So one day he called a professor, and he said that, Tiwari ji, I understand that for the last so many months you are very irregular actually in taking classes. He said, sir, जो आपने सुना है बिल्कुल सुना है गलत. क्या सुना है? कहा हम तो 7 साल से कोई classes ही नहीं ले रहे हैं. And believe me, he told the Vice Chancellor. And he told me, Dr. Arun Singh told me that Dr. Singh, I didn't know what to say. Public institutions की आज सबसे बड़ी problem. I am not criticizing universities, but this is the situation. Poor Tyagi would be managing academic council, and do you know how many members are in the academic council of Delhi University? 107, am I right? 107 से कोई academic matter discuss कर सकते हो आप बताओ हमको? So I asked 2 or 3 professors at Delhi University that what do you do? He said we discuss everything except academic matter. I hope that you will not mind because we are becoming frank, that. What can be done? In some of the state universities, you'd be surprised to know that they have got 142 members of the academic council, so 3-4 days meeting goes of the academic council. It's larger than mini assembly. So you can really imagine what would be happening. And that's why the second point that comes to my mind, how to, and that's why I told DP Singh the first while actually, or the chairman, university का कम से कम restructuring होना बहुत जरूरी है. The major issue is that they have got beautiful strategy, they have got beautiful vision, they have got everything, but without structure and strategy, it can't be implemented. The issue here is not a thought. The here issue is implementation. How to bring implementational components. So that's another kind of thing. So I find why not statutes of the universities of different universities should be also tinkered. A committee can be appointed that. The last point which I would like to say that not comment about that one. It's not a comment, it's a suggestion. When they categorized the institution in terms of research institution, research come teaching institutions, and I think that only teaching institution. Nothing can be more disastrous. On the one side, we say that we should appear somewhere in the world ranking, and we find that somebody would be doing the research work, somebody would be doing the teaching work. So I said that, well, you should have given the component 80% research, 20% teaching, first category. Maybe second category when you come, about 50% research and 50% teaching. And third category when you come, at least about put 25% research and 75% teaching. That would be the most appropriate mix of that. So that is another one, these kind of things. So I hope I have raised 3 questions, and he said only 5 minutes. I'm sorry that brevity is not the virtue of Indians, that when they are in the bike. So I would like to say one thing, how to attract good faculty members. What internal structuring can be done so that we can demand. And I can see it and tell you that there is over-centralization of power also. And I was the syndicate member of the Chandigarh, so I was selecting the registrar. So one professor of physics, the very distinguished professor, he applied for the registrar's position. So I asked him a question, that's how come actually you are interested to be the registrar? You are such a distinguished professor, I think that. He said, sir, you don't know, registrar has got more power than the Vice Chancellor. I was amazed and surprised with that. So somewhere the internal, I'm not talking about you as So I would like to make one point. These are some of the issues if we discuss, and I would not, since Harbans is sitting here, and we had the SOCHAM meeting where I was chairing the session, and I think that also, so maybe that this EPSI can prepare a document based on the discussion here and a brief summary, not about maybe around 25, 30 pages, because the committee is meeting tomorrow again. This highly empowered committee is meeting tomorrow. And I will pick up that issue and say that Khanna, who is from Harvard, and I think that Renu is not coming, and Gopalaswamy, that let's go with that kind of things sometime, meet the Prime Minister, something very brief, that. Because when I saw the bulky report of 483 pages, I myself was surprised. It took at least about 15 days for me to finish that report. Okay. I'm very happy about one thing that, and I must congratulate for the ranking which his school has got. And I think that, I must also say that I visited the school first time and I said that I can see another Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya here. I made that comment. Raj may not be remembering because I spent about whole day there. Raj, whole day, I think, yes. Whole day there. So I think that, and this can be also, we can also say that when we write something about good institutions which they have done, Manipal could be another example, that people can write about Manipal. And I think that, and why I am saying that one, I persuaded one of my colleagues today, not today, about 6 months back, to write the transformational odyssey of the AICTE, and that case is ready. So that you find that we should also see the transformational odyssey of some of the schools and what they have done, because that can be a great motivational story for those persons who are occupying the position of the vice chancellors and so on and so forth. And that's why I remember that vice chancellor is Acharya. Before you people came here, I was talking to them that Acharya's role is a very, very different kind of role. That how we can play the role of Acharya. And even I also suggested to P.K. Misra that why not the selection of the vice chancellor should be done by a permanent body, that is a permanent body, like Public Enterprise Selection Board. But you find otherwise you find that you go on selecting vice chancellors and you don't see common standard. So somewhere the common standard must be involved. So that's why actually that was another kind of suggestion we are going to do. I think we are meeting tomorrow, and I think luckily we have got the chairman. Gopal is a fantastic human being, so when we shall meet, and I must say only one thing, that whatever articulation takes place and whatever I told Harbans, articulation took place in SOCHAM and EPSI together, I think that we would be briefing the Prime Minister. If we get the appointment, we shall brief. Thank you very much, Raj, that you thought about me to come and share some of my random thoughts. I think that I am known as a very frank person, and as some of the people didn't like, but साहब को मैंने बोला था, I think I also said that by, I hope that I was very frank, asking a lot of questions, that. So the question was to help you. I would like to say one thing, that when you start asking questions, then you are helping. And so I think that if I am being very frank and very forthright, Tyagi Sahab ji will not mind, but one thing which I liked about Tyagi Sahab, when he came for making the presentation, he empowered and distributed responsibility among all the 4 members. Can you believe it? Why don't you say? And I think that when Gopal asked me that, what do you feel about Delhi University Vice Chancellor? I said, I don't know whether he knows or not knows, but I know that he is empowering Vice Chancellor. So I think that Vice Chancellor will have to be empowering, whereas in some other universities, those who joined only for about 10 days, they would like to answer all the questions without knowing about the complexities of the university. So I would like to say, Vice chancellors must also learn how to empower the deans and others. That's important part. I'm not talking about you.
Thank you very much, sir, for really raising a number of issues, very intricate ones, many of which will inform our discussion today. I want to quickly recognize the presence of Professor Yogesh Tyagi, the distinguished Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi, which is my alma mater, but more importantly, Professor Tyagi has been a great mentor of mine. So what we will do is, we have amidst us educationists, people from media, and also somebody who we have the fortune of having, and I'm going to have him start off. That's Mr. Ashwin Fernandes. Ashwin is the Regional Director of QS Rankings, representing South Asia, Middle East, and North Africa. And the reason that is important is that today we are talking about aspiring world-class universities. We have the chair of the Institute of Eminence Committee, and the Gazette notification of the Institute of Eminence is expressly talking about the fact that the aspiration and in many ways the accountability for the Institute of Eminence is essentially the breaking of these institutions into, let's say, the top 100 or the top 200 of QS rankings. They also mention the Times Higher Education and the Shanghai Jiatong rankings, but QS rankings is directly mentioned in the Gazette notification as an aspiration for maintaining the status of the Institute of Eminence. So Ashwin, 3 minutes, I want you to tell us what is it that makes these rankings as an important indicator in measuring whether a university is truly world-class or not.
Right. So when we talk of world-class, what is the definition of world-class? It is, are those universities which have made it on the world stage, are recognized on the world stage for their academic excellence. And how do you measure academic excellence? There are various ways to measure it. The rankings, I have to say, are the simplest forms of measurement of academic excellence through various parameters. Now, I am not here to say that QS is the best ranking, and there isn't a best ranking available in the world today. When you look at the entire landscape, there are useful models. And I think QS is one of the useful models today which has evolved over time, listening to what people have to say and producing a ranking that is not just credible but also transparent. So when we look at India a few years ago, we had no university in the top 200. Today we have 3 universities in the top 200. And we have a total of 23 Indian universities in the top 1,000. When we compare that to China, and that's our nearest neighbor we can compare that to, China has 43 of their universities in the top 1,000. And one of the arguments I hear in India, primarily from Indian academics, is that we don't have international students, we don't have international faculty. And I don't think that's a challenge, because that is just 10% of the weight in QS, and in other rankings it is perhaps almost the same. Various rankings have various measures. My focus has been on why don't we start looking at the 90%, and there is potential in there because India has got brains. We have got people from India who are teaching abroad. The diaspora, the Indian diaspora, is huge, and the academic reputation which QS measures in the ranking, which is 40% in the world and 30% in our regional rankings, is a way for institutions to showcase their academic excellence. And one of the areas besides academic excellence which universities do very well is employer reputation. And I think what Indian institutions are not good at is connecting with their alumni. And that has been a pain point. We've been talking to various institutions. Reach out to the alumni, and I think they only realize that the alumni are in senior positions when you have a top one of your top students or one of your students who has gone abroad, done their masters, and then is a CEO of an organization, and then it flashes all around the news, and then you realize, wow, my student is in X country. Because employer reputation in QS ranking has a weight of 10 in the world and 20 in the regional. So these are the 2 areas where I believe Indian institutions can do far better. Besides that, we look at an area called faculty-student ratio. And the faculty-student ratio is a measure of what happens in a classroom, what kind of attention the students have. And it is not the perfect measure, but when we are looking at 28,000 universities in the world today, and in India alone there are 900 of them, we have to have a measure which can be collected every year, which can be authenticated through public data, and it complements your academic reputation and employer reputation at the same time. So all these things put together, and finally research, and I think Professor Pritam Singh mentioned the research, which is a key part of what universities should be doing besides teaching. It should be doing research and contributing to the academic excellence which is happening around the world, and that is measured in QS rankings through Scopus, and there are arguments that Scopus is not the best one, and there are several other ones, and we can argue for the whole evening which is the best database, but it is one of the benchmarks of quality research happening here today. And if China today can do it, I think India as well can do it. When we looked at the arguments, why don't we use Indian Citation Index? Right now, Indian Citation Index is not even used by the government for any of the reference purposes, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong from those in Indian academia, we should be looking at international benchmarks. And the argument in the last few days when I've been meeting institutions and a couple of government agencies, that you want to be world-class, but we want to play it using local indicators or local methodology. It does not work. We need to start looking at the rankings as a measure of what you're doing. But my message to universities and even everyone when they're looking at rankings is not the end game. It is the outcome of what institutions are doing, and it measures through various parameters what the institution is all about. Again, the health warning is look at rankings as one of the lens. There are several other indicators. There are ratings available out there. There are subject rankings available out there. There are online, there are several other resources available. So you have to look at all these and make a decision. But for the IOE exercise, we are looking at the top niche 0.1% of the institutes. So for those kind of institutes, yes, definitely the world ranking is a great source of information. So I would really like to encourage institutions and public to start looking at rankings and providing feedback, looking at data, what is available in the rankings. We are very transparent. The data is available online as well. And that will motivate institutions to be transparent. And that's important, because being transparent also means you're accountable to your stakeholders. So there are various things I've tried to put that's 3 minutes up. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Well, you took 4 minutes, but that's okay. Thank you so much, Ashwin. Now I request Professor Varghese, Vice Chancellor from National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration. Professor Varghese, if you can briefly reflect about the fact that in the current state of evolution of higher education in our country, does our aspiration to build world-class universities and compete internationally, does it run the risk of distracting from some of the core issues that we as a nation ought to be concerned about in higher education, or that we are sufficiently mature and evolved and that we should be able to do both together?
Thank you, Professor Rajkumar. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to respond to an excellent presentation made by Professor Pritam Singh. My first point is that, Indian students excel abroad when they go abroad. Indian professors do very well, but the credibility of Indian institutions are very low. That is the place where we have to talk about when we talk about ranking, when we talk about world-class universities and other things. How to improve the Indian institutions, that is a major concern. And let me say that ranking, personally I feel that ranking is very good. Moving towards world-class universities is very good, but it should not be at the cost of improving the quality of higher education in general. The best should not be the enemy of good, and that should be the way that we should design policies and implement programs in all the institutions. I feel that many a time in the ranking discussions, we forget the fact that We are talking about a microscopic minority of the institutions. We are talking about the elite. We are talking about the rich. We are talking about the well-endowed. We are talking about the institutions which are well established for the last 200 years or so. We have to ensure that other institutions survive in a better way. So I do not want to counterpose excellence versus the quality assurance or insurances of other institutions. Both should go together. Now let me say that there is an idea of what is called a scarcity rent. These undergraduate students in economics will be knowing what I mean to say. In education, this is very important. When education system was very poorly developed and very few people used to go to the universities, if you have a degree, you are very well recognized, you are prestigious. But when the system expanded, the question that is asked, oh, you have a degree, but from where did you get the degree? That became important, which means that labeling became important to a degree and for a qualification. And world-class universities is the highest level at which labeling process takes place. And from that point of view, world-class universities has a lot to do. And especially in the systems where we find that education has become a traded commodity for prices and profits, we find that this is a very important dimension to attract students. The more students you attract, the more profit you make, and therefore it is very important. So our situation is slightly different. As I mentioned, let me reiterate that I'm not against the notions of world-class universities, but I am talking about some of the cautions that one needs to do. And when I talk about the scarcity rent, I want to highlight that what is most scarce in most universities is research, as it was very rightly pointed out. So how can you spread this scarce commodity to among others? How can you share this? That will make a lot of difference. And I think if all universities try to do research, that is very good. But at least we should have some selective policy, not at the cost of the depriving others, you know. So therefore, I feel that there should be some policies. And my experience, both abroad and also in India, shows that collaboration, and not getting into the political dimensions of bringing foreign universities, etc. Collaboration and foreign collaborations with researchers have helped a lot in improving the quality of research and publications. Say, for example, yearly around 200,000 doctorates are produced, and you find that around 64,000 doctorates are produced in USA. And that is followed by 55 to 56,000 of doctorates that are produced in China. The number was very low, but it picked up very well. Now in India also it is picking up, but the only thing is that when I analyze the doctorate degree that are awarded, the universities which are not considered to be prestigious are the ones which are I don't want to name any university, are outnumbering and producing in the PhDs. So I have doubts about the quality of the PhDs which are produced. So can we do something to improve that? That becomes important. The last one that I would say, there is something called a theory of the theory of second rates in education. Professor Singh has touched on it. I am using a different terminology, but I am trying to convey the same message, perhaps less effectively than what you could do. Is that, you know, the best that is coming out of the education system will not be available to the educational system. If you take agriculture sector, you find that the best, we keep it for seed to reproduce the system. But in education, the opposite is happening. If you are very good, you will not be in the educational system. You go to other sectors. If you are not good, you come to the educational system. And in the first instance, in the 1950s, the best students taught by the best teachers went outside. But the best teachers who taught the second rates came to the education system. So there is a cyclical process by which the quality of education, because you know now we are having the third rates taught the students, and the second rates taught by the third rates are also coming to the system. So there is a perennial problem if you look into the cycle of this, what I like to call as the theory of second rates, unless we are in a position to break this theory of second rates, we will not be able to improve our learning, our teaching learning processes and our research processes, and overall improvement in the higher education research quality improvement and moving towards excellence in selected institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Varghese, for that very thoughtful comments. I will share with you entirely what you said in terms of the lack of aspirational India to be part of academia, and that's a big reality. Wherever you ended in terms of attracting faculty and also not having bright people coming into academia, I want to call my colleague, Professor Sean Bala. Sean, you graduated from Harvard University and also University of Chicago. Both are old private universities. Both have known to be global research-oriented institutions and have outstanding faculty. And now for the last several years, you've been working in India. Can you quickly, in 3 minutes, reflect what is the most important distinction that you see in terms of institutional imagination when it comes to faculty and research among the universities that you studied in the US and the universities that have interacted in India?
Yes, so when I think about the idea, oh, thank you, this is actually much easier. So when I think about the idea of what we need to build truly world-class universities, I understand that research is important, and we need to have good quality research. But I also believe that there needs to be a focus on teaching. So if I reflected my experiences, both from my two alma maters, and also my experience of building a school in India and being part of a new institution, I can't discount the importance of teaching and teaching well, because if you are a good teacher who thinks about teaching well, then you will be a good researcher. It's not always the case that somebody who, it's not that, the joke is sometimes that at a university, if the people are researching and they're teaching to put food on the table, so that's not the important thing for them. But I believe that it actually comes from that. So the institutions that I have experienced in my career are ones where teaching is front and center, and it is an integral part of the research process. The teacher is actually a person who is to model good research practices for their students, to show them how to ask questions, how to debate, how to discuss. And so, to me, actually, these skills, this type of modeling, is something that can be done at any institution, public or private. But it takes a change in mindsets. It takes a change in thinking about what exactly is the purpose of an education. Is the purpose of an education merely to build a student's human capital, to make them more marketable, more employable? Or is it to actually make them into better human beings? Or to make them think better, to make them be able to understand the complexities of the world around them? Now, you probably can tell from my loaded question that I probably fall more on the latter than the former. And I don't discount the fact that we need to make students ready for the world, both employment, but also to be citizens. But we need to think about the idea, and I think this is what I have experienced in my own life, of the idea that our teaching is meant to inculcate certain skills and certain habits of mind. And without that, and without a education that reflects the values that society actually needs, creativity, critical thinking, multidisciplinary perspectives, then we're just we are repeating the same things over and over and over again. It'll be the same cycle of education merely as credentialing, a box that you tick off. This is the signal in society that you have made it, you have done well. This is why this is a country of so many engineers, only 7% of which can actually work as engineers and can actually do their professions. It's because we think that engineering, well, not we, but the society thinks that signals that student is done well, that student has done something. And that is an attitude I didn't see as often in America. Though honestly, I will say quite frankly, that this is not a purely Indian problem. That this idea of education as utilitarian is something everywhere. But I didn't see it nearly to the extent that I do here. So to conclude, I would say that it comes from good teaching. It comes from teaching being an integral part of research, and research being an integral part of teaching. I also think it comes from thinking about education as reflecting the values of a society, both its actual values, but more often its aspirational values. So,
thank you, Sean.